Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. I'm so glad everyone is engaged in very, very great conversations, but now it's time to start. Welcome. My name is Xavier Bailey, and I am the president of the Manatee Tiger Bay. We will have the pledge that will be led by the Sarasota Military Academy Cadet Boatman.
Please place your hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We would like, as Tiger Bay from Manatee, we want to go ahead and recognize any veterans or active duty members in the audience. Would you just please stand for one moment and we'll give you a round of applause. We appreciate your service. We appreciate you fighting for our country. Thank you so much. Now I would like to recognize any dignitaries in our audience or any leaders that we have in our community. First, Reggie Bellamy, Commissioner for Manatee County. Manatee County Commissioner Misty Servia. Manatee County School Board Member Scott Hopes. City Council Member Bill Saunders. The President of the Humane Society for Manatee County, Rick Yoakum. President of Centerstone, Melissa Larkin Skinner. School Board Member Dave Miner. I don't know if he's here. Bob Blaylock of Blaylock Waters Law. Dr. Kara Prosfeld, President of State College of Florida. Brown Beto, President of United Way. We also have Kelly Minogue. She is the senior head person, senior head president? Thank you. For the State College of Collegiate. Today, we're going to be getting an update on the 2019 legislator update. Would you go ahead and please silence your phones? Thank you so much. Today's speakers, Representative Tommy Gregory, State House of Representatives, District 73. Please give him a round of applause. Representative Wengay Newton, State House of Representatives, District 70. Please give him a round of applause. Representative Will Robinson, State House of Representatives, District 71. Now I'll go ahead and go into all of their bios, and after your bios, you will come up and speak. Thank you very much. First is Representative Tommy Gregory, Florida State House of Representatives, District 73. Representative Gregory was sworn into Florida State House of Representatives in 2018 and serves on the Civil Justice Subcommittees, Energy and Utilities Subcommittee, Higher Education Appropriations Subcommittee, Judiciary Committee and the Pre-K through 12 Innovation Subcommittee. Representative Gregory is a Florida native and military veteran. After graduating from the U.S. Air Force Academy with a B.S. in economics with military distinction, he received a law JD degree with honors from the University of Texas School of Law. Representative Gregory spent most of his 20 years Air Force career as a prosecutor in the JAG Corps and has served our country in Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. When he retired as a lieutenant colonel, he went into private law in Sarasota. His wife, who is also a retired lieutenant colonel, and he are also small business owners. They have 3 children. Please welcome Representative Tommy Gregory.
I had to ask Xavier how long she wants me to talk. You know, as an attorney and prosecutor and politician, if I don't ask, I could go way too long.
That's okay, I'll be timing you.
All right, perfect. It's a pleasure to be back here. Of course, it's thrilling to be back home after the whirlwind session, the very busy session we had in Tallahassee. And I have to start off by saying, thank God that we live in the state of Florida. I mean, we are really blessed to live in the state of Florida, not just for the natural beauty that we have, but because of the way that our Constitution is structured. Because we have a constitutionally required balanced budget. Isn't it nice? Wouldn't it be great if Washington, D.C. operated the way that Florida does? We have the 14th largest economy in the world compared to countries. You know, Florida's in the top 20 for the size of our economy, and we balance our budget every year. We did that again this year because we're required to do so. And that fiscal responsibility is why Florida has $3.3 billion in reserves at the end of this year. After we're able to do things like recover from Hurricane Michael and send over $100 million that direction for housing and put $16 billion in K through 12 education and make Florida's higher education system number one in the country, thanks to, you know, some part of funding and work on the legislature's behalf, but of course, thanks to leadership like the 2 ladies here from State College of Florida Collegiate School and the State College of Florida. You know, our higher education system is healthy. And of course, we gave them some scrutiny from the Higher Education Appropriations Committee this year. I'm sure you saw that in the news dealing with UCF and, you know, some ways that they appropriated money differently than the way they were directed to. But again, thank God we live in the state of Florida. From my perspective, it was thrilling to go to Tallahassee for a variety of reasons. One of them is when you walk into the rotunda and you look up at the words that are imprinted on the circle there. They are the opening words to the preamble to the Florida Constitution, and it says, "We, the people of the state of Florida, being thankful to Almighty God for our constitutional liberties." And again, it does deserve an amen when you read it. It is moving. And I will tell you that it's a good lead-in to the civility that we do have in Tallahassee. So I'm not just thankful that we have a balanced budget, but I'm also thankful for the civil debate that we have there. Of course, it's easy to say you're a civil debate when you have almost 2/3 in your party running the Florida House. It's, you know, essentially 2/3 Republican. But even the issues that we debated this year, which can be very heated, sanctuary cities and the guardianship program, I was very proud at the leadership from Speaker Oliva and President Galvano that they were able to maintain a civil debate even after going through that, passing the sanctuary cities bill 3 times on the House floor, and a few times we were there past midnight and 2 a.m. But you know, that civility starts at home as well. I don't think my Democratic opponent is here, but Liv Coleman, the person that I ran against for District 73, invited me after the race was over to be a guest lecturer at her class at University of Tampa. And I just think it was such a measure of goodwill. It was a pleasure to take her up on that offer and go there and talk to her students about what life is like in Tallahassee and talk about the debate. Oh, okay, I see Liv's husband here. Is she back there as well? Well, I'm very thankful that, that she participates still and invited me, and it was a pleasure to take part in that. And I will tell you that we have that same kind of civility in Tallahassee. I think it helps that we share all our meals together, right, Representative Newt? The breakfast and the lunch, the members go, to a member-only room and break bread together, and I think it goes a long way to moving Tallahassee in the right direction when you can have that civility. I don't think I have time to go through all the bills, but I will say I got 5 bills passed out of the Florida House this year. The most important one to me was the Honor and Remember Flag bill. It was brought to me by a constituent who lives in Parrish, a Gold Star family, and Florida is finally now recognizing the Gold Star flag as a state emblem, which simply means that we can fly it over the Capitol, you can fly it over government buildings, and we can present it to those families who have paid the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that we continue to live in the greatest country in the world. Beyond that, I sponsored a bill that ended up directing $18 million to Moat Marine to study as part of their Red Tide Institute, Red Tide Initiative, so that we can have continued funding for the next 6 years and hopefully longer to do what we can to identify all the causes and combat red tide, which, as we know, has got to be job one. And of course, Governor DeSantis requested $625 million in funding for water quality in Florida this year and Everglades restoration. I'm very proud that the House and the Senate gave him $687 million. So a lot of good work was done in Tallahassee. I want to close with one shout out to a young man in the audience that hopefully is training to, or hopefully has a goal to replace us. It was a real pleasure to sponsor him as an intern this past year. Now, I do want you to replace us, and please stand for a round of applause. He came up and did a great job for us in Tallahassee. It's Mr. Ed Bailey. Thank you. We do want him to replace us, and we have to mentor our future, but we don't want you to replace us next year, Ed, all right?
Please give him a round of applause. You did pretty good, but if you see me stand, you all, that means that, it means it's time to sit down, okay? Thank you. Next, we will have Representative Wengay Newton, Florida State House of Representatives, District 70. Representative Newton was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Midtown area with his 7 siblings by his single divorced mother. He learned at an early age the value of hard work, teamwork, and perseverance. For 29 years, he has been married to his soulmate, Melissa Newton. Together, they have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. Representative Newton graduated from Northeast High School in 1981 and graduated from ITT Technical Institute with an AS degree in electronic engineering. He worked in corporate America with Xerox Corporation for 18 years. In 2000, he started his own business, Newton's Photography Studio, which he is still operating and growing today. Representative Newton served 2 terms on the St. Petersburg City Council from 2008 to 2016 and is currently serving his 2nd term as the state representative of Florida House District 70. Representative Newton's current committee assignments are Business and Professions Subcommittee, Democratic Ranking Member, Children, Family, and Seniors Subcommittee, Higher Education Appropriations Subcommittee, and State Affairs Committee. Please welcome Representative Wengay Newton.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, my strength, O Lord, my Redeemer. Good afternoon, good afternoon. I have to keep looking. I started out at St. Pete College Seminole campus. As you know, District 70 encompasses Hillsborough, Manatee, Sarasota, and Pinellas. So we got a little small area. Yesterday I started out in Tampa, Ended up with the Manatee Chamber over in Lakewood Ranch. Went back to St. Pete to finish up with the St. Petersburg Chamber, and then ultimately we dedicated a building at USF St. Pete after Representative Heller. So it was a small but typical day. First and foremost, I want to recognize my LA, Michelle Grantham. You can stand up if you will. She did her first, yeah, you can give her a clap. She did her first session, because she's newly hired with me in the legislature, as you know, this is my third session, and she did a yeoman's job. We were able to get 2 bills through the process and off the floor. We were also able to get funding again for HIPPY, which is Home Instructions for Parents of Preschool Youth, for the total of $3.9 million, and another $500,000, I think, for PAL over in St. Petersburg. But the takeaways from this session, it was a lot good and some were bad, in my opinion. The best one was we got into statute the fact that USF Minnesota and USF St. Pete will be branch campuses, and that's huge for consolidation. If you don't know what that is, we have 3 preeminent universities in the state of Florida. Florida State, UF, and now USF St. Pete, and USF Minnesota, and USF the main campus. So you can get a preeminent degree right here in your community without leaving, which is big, because that's why everybody wanted to get into UF and Florida State. We also was able to do the right thing and provide cancer coverage for our firefighters. That was huge. We have so many firefighters at a young age getting cancer and dying from cancer. And it's devastating to their family, and I think that's the least we could do for the people that pay the ultimate price and keep us safe. Another excellent thing I thought we were doing was able to get the per student allocation funding up this year. I mean, as you know, last year it was 47 cents, and we had to go back and redo it and try to get more funding. And also, I want to close with this. I want to thank Representative Will Robinson and Representative Gregory. Their freshman year, they did a yeoman's job. They worked together, they listened when they didn't know things, and they was able to help them through the process, because that's important. We had a lot of freshmen come in there, and those were the ones that kept us on the floor to 2:03 a.m. Wasn't 2 a.m. With the unlimited amendments and their strategy of, we're gonna keep them here all night. But they didn't understand it rains on the just as well as the unjust. So keeping them there all night kept us there all night too. And people weren't really happy, too ecstatic about that. So we went to structured debate to try to rein some of that in, because it was crazy. But I want to thank them, also our Senate President Galvano, the governor, Senator Brandis, and a lot of our other colleagues who came down to Midtown. Thought not robbery to come over to Midtown St. Pete, where I was born in 1963. My mom died in 1985 at the age of 47 years young, raising 8 kids she didn't get by herself off government subsidies. And to this day, it remains the most impoverished area in all of Pinellas County of 1 million people. And the significance of that was they went down to announce the expansion of the voucher opportunities for parents to be able to put their kids in a situation that would be better for their outcomes. And what's so huge about that, I'm one of 7 Democrats who voted up on that bill. And the reason being is that I represent 4 school boards, and all of them ain't perfect. I mean, I was at a debate or update Saturday with Representative Good, and she was talking about how great Sarasota schools was, and they're great. But in Pinellas, where we were at, in the center of the most impoverished area in the whole county, is with the home to 5 failure factory schools. And also is home to the only black school that African Americans can go to, which is D. Gibbs High School, which was ultimately an F school, up under the guidance of this Pinellas County School Board. And we also have a lawsuit before the failure factory story, a COQUEB lawsuit, because of the way they were funding schools in the minority areas. The failure factory was more damning because it showed a systematic process of the way they funded these schools, in essence creating the environment for kids to fail. And that's huge. So being able to give those parents an opportunity is big. All my kids attended Fairmont Park Elementary, which one of the F schools, and My wife and I got letters every year how we can cut and run, but we kept our kids there. But that was a good option to have. But ultimately, in this school to prison pipeline, which is not a private school to prison pipeline, it's not a voucher school, and it's not a charter school, it's a public school to prison pipeline, people that look like me, young black boys and young black girls, are the ones who are highly represented and taken out to the Pinellas County Jail for children with permanent records put on them. You go to school to get education, you end up with a permanent record. I can't fathom that. So I'm trying to figure out a way that we can help the least today. And I'm a realist. I know I won't save them all, but I'm going to save all I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we will have Representative Will Robinson, Florida State House of Representatives, District 71. Representative Robinson.
That's some time left. Hold on.
You did. Representative Robinson was elected to the Florida House of Representatives in 2018, representing District 71. He is a partner at the Blaylock Waters Law Firm, where he focuses on real estate law and is a board certified by the Florida Bar in the real estate law. He is a member of the 12th Judicial Circuit Nominating Commission and the Lakewood Ranch Medical Center Board of Governors, and a past member of the Manatee Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and a former chair of Manatee Young Professionals and the Legislative Affairs Committees. Robinson was the past chair of both Meals on Wheels Plus of Manatee and the Bradenton Downtown Development Authority. He was also a graduate of Leadership Florida Class 29 and the past president of the Manatee Young Republicans. Representative Robinson attended Manatee High School, where he served as the student body class president. He is a graduate of the University of Notre Dame and received his JD from Stetson University College of Law. Please welcome Representative Will Robinson.
Well, thank you all. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. I was born right up the river. I'm a charter member of Tiger Bay, and this is actually the first time I've spoken at Tiger Bay. So it's certainly my pleasure to be here. And sometimes when your colleagues say it so well, you should just sit down and be quiet. I think they both, first of all, stole my thunder a little bit, but secondly, really talked about the session. But for me, as Representative Newton mentioned, I was a freshman. So a lot of this stuff was brand new, and I never quite understood when those that came back to town, whether it's Representative Boyd or Representative Stubbe, saying, "Oh, it's so great to be home." Well, it is absolutely great to be home. I love the work that we did, but I went running the other day and I smelled the Tropicana smell, and I'm like, I'm back home. So I'm very proud of the work that we did, but certainly I'm happy to speak to you all about the session. Before session, though, I want to back up. We had what's called organizational session. So we were elected in early November, and then I believe November 20th, we came in and were sworn in. And I wanted to see my mentor, President Galvano, get sworn in to be the Senate President. So I sat in the back of the Senate chambers before I was sworn in. I think the Senate started at 10:30, and the House was supposed to start at noon. And I don't know if you all know how important it is for this area to have the Senate President and to have this gentleman, and a lot of the issues we'll talk about today and the tone that both these gentlemen talked about was set because of the President and certainly our Speaker. And I am honored, and we all should be honored to have Senator Galvano leading us. But I was there, and my aide is Megan. Where's Megan? Megan is my aide. All the great work comes from her. But she started texting me, and she's like, "Will, you're about ready to start in the Florida House. Get out of the Senate. You're not a senator." So I left the Senate, and I went down to the Florida House. We were all allowed to bring one person on the floor to get sworn in with us, and I brought my dad, and they all brought us up. All the freshmen got to get up there, and on teams of 5, we got sworn in. And when you walk through those doors for the very first time and you see the seal on the carpet, you really understand what you're there to do. We're there to protect not only our area, but also for all Floridians. And it was important to me to understand that throughout the session. Now, Representative Gregory talked about our budget. That's really the only constitutional requirement we have in our state, is to pass a balanced budget. And I'm very proud of our budget. It's $91 billion. As Representative Gregory said, we have a rainy day fund of about $3 billion. We have a tax cut of about $100 million. And I say this a lot. Florida just passed New York State in population. So we're third. It goes California, Texas, and Florida. But by the way, a city the size of Orlando is moving to our state every year. So we got to respond to those challenges. But we just passed a $91 billion budget. So if you assume that Florida and New York, who are kind of close in population, are the same in population, New York just passed a budget that was double of Floridians, of our budget. And I have a hard time believing that a New Yorker has twice the quality of life that a Floridian has. So it's very important to me and to my colleagues that we pass a responsible budget, and I certainly think we did. A second issue that certainly is near and dear to my heart and near and dear to this district in Florida is water quality. And as Representative Gregory mentioned, I think we made some good progress on the appropriation side. I sat on the Agriculture and Natural Resources subcommittee, so I heard all the bills that came through, and we had some great bills. We had, I think, 15 water quality bills, and while I would like to have seen some of those bills cross the finish line, for instance, I had a septic tank maintenance bill that made it through one committee stop. So I think we have some room to go here on some of these regulatory issues, and I read that red tide is back, and certainly it's something that I never want to see us have to go through what we went through last summer. I met a young mullet fisherman a couple months ago. I actually went out in Braden Beach and we did a clam restoration project. And I didn't know this, but clams clean like 20 gallons of water a day. So we're dumping these clams down, and he turns to me and he says, "Representative, I just want to thank you for what you're doing. I couldn't fish. I couldn't feed my family." I know a lot of people talk about not being able to go to the beach or renting a hotel, which is very important. He couldn't feed his family. And he said, not only couldn't I feed my family because I couldn't fish, but I had to make minimum wage to pick up the dead fish. And the smell of stench in our area into him. And I thought a lot about that gentleman when I voted. And I never want to see our area go through that. So I'm proud of the progress that we have made in this 2019 session. Do we have some things to accomplish? Absolutely. The speaker, when we were brought in for majority training, put up a very important statistic and graphic. And he showed the cost of all major areas in our society. And the graph showed that many of our areas that are encumbered by government, whether or not it's higher education or healthcare, the cost has gone through the roof. And those that maybe we let government step out of the way a little bit, costs have gone down. Think about the cost it was to maybe buy a television 10 years ago. Or some other electronics where we've allowed government to get out of the way a little bit. So in those two areas, the House really focused on healthcare reform and higher education reform. And actually, you're looking at 3 members of the Higher Education Appropriations Committee, and we may talk about some of those issues a little bit later, but I'm very proud of the work that we did in higher ed. And Representative Gregory mentioned how we work together as a body. And I'm sure we'll get into some of those tough issues and those tough votes, and certainly there were those, and I think that's good. I frankly think that's good for debate, to sit on the House floor at 2 in the morning and have to articulate your position to the other side. And most of our votes, frankly, were either unanimous or maybe 1 or 2 voted opposite. So you contrast that with Congress, where, as Representative Gregory mentioned, I believe, we sit there and we talk to each other. We eat dinner with each other. I know many members' kids' names and their spouses' names. And you're much able to have a discourse and conversation when you know someone, as opposed to when you just go in there and press a button. Can I have 20 seconds?
I yield my 20 seconds.
Thank you, Representative.
I accept.
Okay. And so I want to leave you with a quote. And this quote is actually on the Florida House website, and it's from the Speaker. "Let our debate lean on our argument rather than the volume of our voice." I think we had great debate this session, but I think we allowed our voice to maybe go down a couple notches. Look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Robinson. Next, we will have our questions from our members. To ask the question of our speakers, you must be a member of Manatee Tiger Bay. And to become a member, Elaine, raise your hand. All you have to do is pay $100 today, and you may ask your $100 question. Okay. Also, anyone who comes to the mic, please do not go into a long elaboration. All we want is for you to ask your very important question, because I know our representatives want to answer your questions for you, okay? Give us your name if you are a member and state your question and which speaker you want to direct your question to. So we also accept questions online, and we get a few questions. The first question is from Liv Coleman. This question is for Representative Robinson and Representative Gregory. Gregory, sorry. Alabama and Georgia legislators are restricting almost all abortions, even in cases of rape and incest, and casting suspicions on those who have miscarriages. Representative Robinson and Gregory, do you want to see Roe versus Wade overturned? Yes or no? Do you agree with what Alabama and Georgia are doing on the abortion issue? Either one of you may come up first to answer this question.
Am I limited to yes or no?
No.
Well, you'll be able to read through the lines here pretty clearly, because I sponsored a pro-life bill called the Pain Capable Protection Act, which, you know, doctors and scientists now tell us that a baby in the uterus can feel pain and will move away from pain at 20 weeks. So the idea there is to back it up in Florida, which is now essentially 24 weeks. Anything over 24 weeks, you can't perform an abortion in Florida. That bill would have moved it to 20, but I also co-sponsored the other two bills. One is parental consent, which would have required simply that a parent consent. Right now, the law in Florida is you have to notify a parent if you're a minor. This bill would have made it consent. I co-sponsored that bill, which made it through the House, but not the Senate. And then there was a member that introduced the heartbeat bill, and I co-sponsored that bill as well, but it did not move through any of the committees. So I think you can see where I'm coming from, but I'll say that this is a debate that is part legislative, and not a surprise to anybody in the room, is really also part science, part religion, part legislation. And like any really important piece of legislation or important issue, we're not going to be able to legislate it until we can agree on the science and the morality of it. So while I co-sponsor and sponsor bills like that, and I would like to see Florida move to become a state that values life from conception to death, because I think there are things that we do wrong on both ends of that. I don't think that a draconian approach right out of the legislature is going to solve this problem until we're on the same page.
Not surprisingly, I agree with Representative Gregory. I'll certainly let the court do what they need to do, but from a legislative perspective, we didn't pass an abortion bill this session, at least out of the House. Out of both bodies. We passed what I thought was a very reasonable parental consent bill out of the Florida House. The Senate didn't take it up, so we don't frankly have an abortion bill that will be going in front of the governor. And I, like Representative Gregory, co-sponsored the heartbeat bill. I think that was a good bill, or I wouldn't have co-sponsored it. I am a strong believer in the sanctity of life, and frankly, I would have liked to have seen one of those bills make it across the finish line, but they didn't. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jane Filesticker, and I am a member. The question that I was originally planning to ask you pertained to working across the aisle in a bipartisan manner, but it sounds as if you have accomplished that in a pretty reasonable way, so I'll pound away at something a little more controversial. Apparently, the legislation pertaining to arming teachers in schools, or the potential for arming teachers in school, passed, but with some contention. So I would like to ask each one of you what your thoughts are on that, and whether or not you would be comfortable having armed teachers that trained into the Guardian program, but who are not law enforcement officers within your children's schools. Additionally, I would like to know your thoughts on concealed carry within higher education. For me, that was at one point in my life a very controversial and worrisome topic, as I have had students leap across tables wanting to throttle my neck over an F. So bearing that in mind, would you please address your personal feelings and experiences with that?
Well, I have a little more experience than my freshman colleagues. I was there during the St. Valentine's Day massacre at Parkland when 17 people lost their life when a kid gunned them down with a military-style assault rifle. Guns in school, other than law enforcement having them, is a terrible idea. I mean, hey, I got to put it out there. I voted against that bill. I believe that, and I told the media this, if they give them guns, they ought to take them to the pawn shop and sell them, and the teacher keep the money. Because then he raises, not guns. And also, after all these years of bashing teachers about what they did and didn't do, it's kind of, I don't think it's a good idea to give them a gun. Because they might shoot you. But we had some frank and honest debate, long debate on the floor about this bill. And even during the debate, if you watched it, I kind of blew a gasket. I went off a little bit because we had the presenter of the bill was talking about, we had a sheriff in Pasco County that gun had went off in school, accidentally or whatever. Gun went off in school. And during the back and forth and debates and the amendments, the sponsor found out from her staff that what had happened, because one of the members off the back row hit her with that did you know question. And then so subsequently she got up and she kind of dismissed it. She said, oh yeah, that gun went off, but that was a SRO, that wasn't a Guardian. And I just blew a gasket. I said, we have guns going off in our schools. This is insanity. The bullet could have ricocheted and killed the officer, or hit a kid in the head, anything. I said, this is a terrible idea. And this is a trained individual. He's been through extensive training on how to handle a weapon and everything. I'm talking about during the debate, the gun went off in one of our schools. And they explained it away like it was nothing. That kills me also. You know, I served on Health Quality Subcommittee, and every year we get abortion bills, and they always get the freshman female to carry it. And I feel bad for her because she got to carry the water. You know, a guy can't carry abortion bills. It's got to be a woman. So I'm in Health Quality, and they're debating the abortion bill, and they're very passionate and intimate about it and about their rights. But when we transition to the floor and start talking about school safety, and the back row offers up 38 amendments to try to make that bill better, and every one of them gets shot down, it's like they didn't care. They're okay with those people getting gunned down, but they're not okay with someone having something to do with a fetus, or a woman having a right with her doctor to have that medical option. And that blew me away, because it's like two norms. It's the same people, but it's, you know, because we got the NRA in the lobby looking down, everybody's doing something different now, and it's the same thing. It's all about life. But if you really want to, I didn't weigh on the abortion bill. What I want to say, if you really want to regulate pro-life and pro-choice, regulate the seed. We men got no problem putting laws on these women's body, none at all. But without the seed, there won't be nothing to abort.
This was a tough debate. I mean, this was maybe one of the 2 or 3 bills that I believe was I believe it was fairly party line. On the 1-year anniversary of the Parkland disaster, I met a father of one of the victims, right there in the rotunda. And he looked at me and he said, Representative, do everything you can to protect those children that weren't protected in Parkland. And to take a step back, what we approved was actually a recommendation of the Parkland Commission. Passed 13-1, by the way. It included a number of factors, not just the issue we're talking about, but 15, 20 other safety measures from mental health and other issues. And the one person that voted against that proposal actually called the chair of the Education Committee and said, "My daughter was killed, but vote for this bill, please." Right now, what this bill does is it expands the Guardian program. So right now, Manatee County has chosen as its option to have guardians in certain schools. What this does is this allows solely a teacher in instruction to be a guardian. So right now, if there's a teacher that has any other responsibility associated with his or her job, playground duty, athletics, she could be a guardian right now. So this bill is a minor change that allowed teachers solely in instruction with the appropriate firearms training, et cetera, to be a guardian. And it provides an option for each district. We're always talking about home rule and protect home rule and make sure each district is tailored. Well, there are some rural communities out there that aren't rich like Sarasota, that can't have their own police squad, that frankly said, we need this in our schools. It may not be perfect. We may like to have an SRO in every single school, and maybe that's my preference, but some districts don't have the financial capability to have that. So this offers maximum flexibility, and I think was a reasonable approach.
Well, I agree with Representative Robinson. It does offer the maximum flexibility. It is a reasonable approach, but you don't want to add to that we can't just put our heads in the sand. We can't pretend that we live in a utopia where there aren't bad people in the world. There are. I mean, hopefully none of them are in this room, but there could be, right? You don't know who the bad guy is, and the worst thing that you can do is publicly tell the world so that the bad people know there are no guns in this area. There will never be a gun in a classroom because we will never allow a teacher to be armed. And frankly, it bothers me that it's a political spin even to call this the arming teachers bill, because the bill, just like the original response to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, that bill did so many other great things. I mean, besides creating the Guardian program and providing funding for that and for school hardening and mental health, there are so many other things that we do with this bill this year and last year, and it can get lost because people want to attack it as the arming teachers bill. But here's the reality. It's not arming all the teachers. And I'm sure most of the people in this room would think back at all our teachers and say, I'm not sure I can think of any of them that I would want to be armed. But the point is, you don't know. One of those teachers could have been like my wife or so many other troops, or maybe they go through the troops to teachers conversion. You know, maybe like me or my wife, they carried arms for 20 years. Maybe they were deployed downrange and they've just come back from Iraq, or they came back 3 years ago and they were used to carrying weapons all day, every day. The people that have the skills, either because of the military or the law enforcement background, they've got the skills to do it, they've got the desire to do it, they're willing to go through the training that the state of Florida requires before you can do it. Let them protect your children. That's the point behind expanding the guardianship program. It's not to arm teachers. It's to arm heroes that are willing to lay their life on the line and give them the capability to prevent further death in the school.
Next question, please.
Thanks, Madam President. My name is Matt Bauer. I am a member. First, I want to say thank you for taking care of our Gold Star families. Very, very important. Passing the cancer bill for our first responders. I'll submit to you PTSD coverage for our first responders is next in line. You need to look at that. My question for you, for whoever voted for the new toll road, forgive me for that, but if you voted yes for that, I would like to know why you voted yes, and do you think it was responsible to do so without having all of the facts necessary, both fiscally and environmentally, admittedly not knowing all the facts of how that worked out?
Well, I think everybody up here voted yes for the transportation bill and the toll roads. And I think for a couple of things. One is that bill covers numerous years. It's not a one-year bill, and it's fully funded, and we're going to start construction tomorrow. The first couple of years, I think from now until 2022, are a study. So we are studying the environmental impacts. We are trying to minimize that. But the reality is you can't build a road in Florida without going through water somewhere. So we have to do everything we can to minimize that, and that's what the bill is designed to do. That's why it creates the entity that's going to conduct the study, give the feedback with the goal to start funding and breaking ground in 2022. And I think I know the reason that I voted for the bill is, number one, we need more roads to handle the city the size of Orlando that's moving here every day, and certainly in hurricane evacuations, but we also need it for the economy. To move goods up and down our expressways and the soon-to-be-built toll roads, that's the only way to ensure that the economy of Florida continues to grow. And when you have 900 people a day moving here, they need a place to work. The reality is that most container trucks, more than half that come to Florida bringing all these goods that we buy, I don't know if you realize that, more than 50% of those 18-wheelers, when they are leaving Florida going north on I-75, empty. Because our economy is not designed to help them from a manufacturing and a transportation perspective. So those are the reasons that I voted yes.
This goes back to my original comment about President Galvano. We are so blessed to have someone that has the foresight. That's the alarm I have when I wake up. It's making me kind of like I should get up and take a shower or something. He has the foresight to understand the challenges that our state has from an infrastructure standpoint. He's a Senate president. He could have picked any topic to work on. He could have asked for a huge museum in downtown Bradenton and gotten $50 million, but he chose, in my opinion, to be selfless. And certainly, we're going to have to work through the environmental issues and to make sure the roads are in the right spot and to make sure they go in the right areas. Absolutely, we have to make sure that happens. But to make sure that our state moves forward, this is something that hopefully will happen, and I'm proud of the direction and the leadership that President Galvano. The last gentleman that showed leadership in this area was President Eisenhower. Our interstates were created because of President Eisenhower. I'm so happy he had the foresight, and I said this publicly yesterday. I hope they're called the Galvano toll roads or expressways because of his leadership and his guidance and his ability to put our state first. So absolutely, we have to conquer the environmental challenges, but this is a very good step for Florida.
I said this yesterday. I hope I don't get a ticket on that Galvano Expressway going back to Tallahassee. I voted for the transportation bill because I served 8 years on council. I was on Pinellas Planning Council, Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, MPO, and the PPC. So I know the best time for a good transportation and a transportation network was 10 years ago. I had a transportation meeting with Commissioner Bellamy and some other elected officials over about the flyover that's being proposed and other transportation options, and we had standing room only. These local individual governments to receive what they call impact fees. If you put a toilet in your house, it's a $300 impact fee. That's the impact to that sewer system. So instead of using the money to build more roads and all that money they got from impact fees, it went somewhere else, God knows where. But now you got a problem. You got a road that's a parking lot. And I don't know if you've been around where we're standing, but there's no way off of this island without trying to go to 75, which everybody's already on 75, or 275, and pray God they don't close the Skyway Bridge. So most of the roads that he's proposing is going to go up north. So it's going to help with the coastal communities to be able to get in. If you knew anything about Irma or Michael, we reversed all, I think, 8 lanes on the Howard Franklin. I'm sorry, on 75. Go in one direction. And because that's the only main vein we had out of town, it was a huge parking lot. So we have got to get serious about our infrastructure and the possibilities. One more reason I voted for it, because this is not the final do. I read off at least 13 or 14 local entities, including the Sierra Club, local elected officials, NPO boards, all those individuals that are going to be at the table while we're doing this. So it'll come back to the legislature to get funding and to go forward. But we have to go out and look and see what could be, because yesterday was the best day for a good transportation network.
Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm a member. I have a question for Will Robinson, but I have a quick comment that I cannot let go by regarding all this guns issue. I was served almost 20 months in Southeast Asia many years ago, and I remember we had more regulations around what happened in base camps with separating ammunition from guns and keeping people safe than we have in the United States today. It's just a comment on where we are as a country from 50 years ago to where we are today. But my question for you, Representative Robinson, is I really appreciate your work on trying to get something around septic tanks, but we have to get something done around septic tanks. They are a major polluter as well as agricultural runoff. So what can we do to support your initiative in this regard in the coming year? Because this is really critical.
Where were you 3 months ago? No, I'm kidding. Septic system, I think it's one important piece. And like I said earlier, I've talked to Senator Gruters about an alternate approach, possibly. This bill required 5 seconds. I can't even say my name in 5 seconds. This bill required a 5-year maintenance program, and to some in the legislature, they said, well, why 5 years? In my conversations with the DEP, that's when most septic systems start to fail, so that's the number that I used. So I am totally open, and I said this from the very beginning. I'm one of 120, and there's Senate on the other side, and you have a governor, so I'm only one voice. So I'm totally open to discussion on this issue, but certainly writing your legislators, writing the governor about this issue, getting it top of mind, because water quality, as we've seen, is one of our most important issues, and that's one of the pieces of the puzzle. So thank you.
Pat
And our
Benson,
last
member.
question.
This is to all three. I'm from New York. Part of the reason the people are coming out of New York is because of Trump's tax thing. Just a rebuttal. Number two, my sister's not a police officer, but a guardian in a public schools in New York City. They have metal detectors. There's not a gun in the school. She does not carry a gun. She calls the police department and they come. Does she fight them? She's on video holding back students. I mean, do we really need a gun in a school?
Is that the
My
question?
only question is, now that you have passed and are going to try to privatize education in this state with private charters and the religious schools, I would like every student in this state tested the same way, so we know what's happening. And I also would like to make sure
Patty, what's your question?
I would like them to put on their agenda for next year that all students be tested in this state, and that we see who's being placed in these states. Could you agree with me on that? As far as what students are picked for the private school or the religious school, how are they stacked?
Yeah.
Because that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, the Constitution said we have to provide a quality education for the young people. And you're exactly right. It was a lot of amendments put forth on this bill that did not fail because of what happens when the bills go back and forth. However, it's not cemented in concrete. We can go back and amend it to require measures, because that was a big question. People didn't have a problem spending money to get their kids educated. They just want to make sure they were getting educated. So you're right in your mindset with that. As far as the options of funding, it's not really the schools that have changed. It's the way we police in the schools. After Sandy Hook and Newtown, Connecticut, you can shake your head, but I'm telling you, when I came up in school, if I got in a fight with Gregory and we got in a knockdown, drag-out fight, next week, he's my best friend. But today, if I punch Gregory or Gregory punch me, that's assault. And then, please, because if Gregory, if the officer grabs, the SRO grabs my arm and I snatch away, that's resisting arrest without violence. So today, in today's school, I go to jail and I get a record. for fighting, or and another charge for resisting arrest without violence. Now, riddle me this: how do you send a kid to school to get educated and he end up with a criminal record?
Part of that is
So-
discipline at home and in the school.
Yeah,
And
well,
you're
that's
taking-
why you want the
you're taking
people at home.
power away from the teachers.
That's why you want the people at home, just what you just said. The people at home will have options to do something about it. You just said it. Because the people at home are the parents.
You know, I'll answer this question a little bit differently. We were in one of our orientation sessions, and I looked on the table, and there's this big book, and I assumed it was the Florida statutes. It was all the statutes that apply to K-12 education. And to me, as a conservative and someone that believes in local control, I understand we need to have state standards, but I think we've gotten way too complicated in some of the things we've done, and certainly that includes the testing aspect to it. So I'd like to see that tailor down a bit, and certainly that's where I'll lean on my school board friend members over here to help us guide through that. But I think we've gotten a little bit too complicated and lost what really the fun should be. The fun is in learning or eating paste or whatever you want to do as a young child. I understand we have to test and we should have measurable results and measurable tests for students and teachers, et cetera. But I think the pendulum has swung a bit too far in one direction, and I'd like to see it go back a little bit.
I'll just add that there's a fascinating public policy debate there between, wanting to track from an accountability perspective how our tax dollars are being spent, and if they're going in vouchers to private schools, you want to see results for your tax dollars. I get it. And then on the other side, you have the argument of, well, it's parental responsibility. The parent who's receiving the voucher and choosing which school they want to send their child to, if they want to send their child to a private school that doesn't test or test using a different test, why shouldn't the parent be able to make that choice if the money's following the student? But I will back up to what Representative Robinson is alluding to with the pendulum swinging too far. I think we have a much bigger problem with the over-testing to begin with. I think the number of days, it's true. I mean, we're at 23 days now, I think, in a typical school year that they're testing, which is at least, I think we would agree, twice as many as they should be, if not 3 times as many. So I don't think the answer is to take these ridiculous burdens and apply them to everyone. I think it's to do what Representative Robinson said and move the pendulum the other direction.
Thank you so much to all of you who asked questions. Thank you to our representatives. May I please have our Tiger by the Tail Award presentation?
The Tiger by the Bay Award goes to Stephen Murphy.
Stephen Murphy. Stop. Thank you, Will. It's a new phone. Thank you for all of you who are at our luncheon today. I want to thank our speakers, Representative Tommy Gregory, Representative Newton, and Representative Robinson. Thank you so much. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you to all our board members who participate on our program. Please stand up for a round of applause. I'm almost done, guys. I got a lot of new board members with that one. We are looking for some. The next luncheon will be held on June 27th. Please note this is the 4th Thursday of the month. Our topic is going to be growth in Manatee County. Are we moving too fast? Are we not planning? Come out and see. It's going to be a good one. Members and guests, if you know anyone that would like to become a member, please come out. I also want to thank METV and the crew. Please give them a round of applause. Thanks to ABC7 for coming out. We appreciate you supporting Manatee Tiger Bay. Thanks also to the Bradenton Herald and also to the Sarasota Herald. Meeting adjourned.